everyone. Welcome to the Friends and the Grummels and all of us. We're the Shinies and Luckydos podcast. We're a fortnightly discussion about World of Warcraft and lore and speculation. I'm Vaski, and then today we're joined again by Rinwiki and Lhok. It's great to have her along with again. Shirviu, unfortunately, couldn't join us, but she is in the chat and she's going to hang out with everyone today. So Rinwiki is an incredible person that has joined our whole entire friend group that knows everything about human lore, is incredibly talented, just knows everything about the lore. And Lhok here is an incredible encyclopedia of the whole entire game, and she has this inept mind bank. So welcome them as well with us. It's going to be great. We do have a really great milestone that we got hit today. We've already got a little bit more since it's been announced, but we're at 200 subs, guys. It's incredible. It's so humbling for the fact that we only had 81 subs beginning on June 1st. It's just great to have all of you guys, all our lore walkers and family coming with us on this journey. So stay tuned with us because we got some really special treats that we're going to be handing out really soon here. And we're going to be doing a giveaway for all of that. So it's really great. And we're going to do a big shout out to Mr. GM because he's been helping us and get our name reached out for all the lore hungry community that's out there. So you're the best, man. We really appreciate you. So guys, we're going to be covering topics Scarlet Crusade and Archbishop Benedictus. We're definitely going to start out with the Scarlet Crusade because there's such a hot, meaty topic throughout all the years since vanilla. So let's bid adieu. Lhok, do you want to go ahead and introduce on Scarlet Crusade?
Yeah, so the Scarlet Crusade is a organization that was a splinter group from the Knights of the Silver Hand after the war of the Scourge in Lordaeron. They're very zealot-like. They're opposed to like everyone, so they're very xenophobic. They don't particularly like anyone outside of their own community. And yeah, like we've known them since vanilla through Scarlet Monastery, the Undead Starter Zone in Tirisfal, and there's even been like small hints of them in Stormwind.
Oh yeah, underneath the cathedral, right?
Yeah, and that's where you come in, Rin. I don't really know much about them in Stormwind, but yeah, so do you want to start there?
There's not actually any official like idea on why they're there underneath the cathedral. Honestly, it's kind of led to speculation. They say it's one of their main recruiters that is actually standing there. And it's really eerie when you go down there because there's like a lot of torture devices and everything, and there's actually never been an official decree from Stormwind that they are going to kick out or have any punishment for the Scarlet Crusade coming into the city, even though the Scarlet Crusade are not particularly affiliated with the Alliance or the Horde or anybody, to be honest. But I guess it's the whole thing of like alliance unity, like they're not going to push out people, they're going to like give them the second chance because of course they're after letting warlocks and death knights come back in, but they have not officially announced that they are going to take away the I don't know how to like say it, but they're not going to take away the crimes they've committed unlike they have for the death knights and the warlocks. So maybe that's why they're underneath the cathedral instead of being inside them.
Interesting. I find that really weird. And I've always found it interesting, too, since vanilla. There's always been Iron Maidens down there as well, too. And it's like, I mean, it's in like a holy place, you would think, with like the light. Granted, they are fanatics. I found that eerily creepy that was a part of all of that down there.
Just having a think about that. Rin, do you think it's possible that one of the reasons why the Scarlet Crusade is actually allowed in Stormwind is because of their ties to Lordaeron. I mean, after the war, didn't Stormwind take in a whole bunch of like the survivors of Lordaeron?
Yeah, they did. I think the whole idea of keeping the Scarlet Crusade is because they did come from people that did come from like the Lordaeronian people, and Lordaeron has been known to have strong ties with Stormwind. They take in people. Terranus took in Varian when Lane died, when Stormwind was ruined that time. So I think it's more of a idea that they might eventually turn on their ways. They might actually realize what they're doing is wrong, but I don't think they want to be open about it, and that's why they're given such a closed off space where you have to really look for them to know they're there, and they don't ever mention they're there. Like Stormwind doesn't. It's kind of like Stormwind doesn't want you to know they're there, but they're there for the sake of saying they never kicked them out. That's what it feels like to me.
Definitely. Now, yeah, Patrick, they did exorcise a demon down in the basement, which is pretty cool. I still find the Iron Maiden, you see them even all over the instances too. That it's kind of harsh for people of the light. It's pretty crazy. Now, Shirviu makes a great point too of like what exactly are the crimes that have been acknowledged for the Scarlet Crusade?
I don't know. I suppose I'm gonna have to leave that to Lhok.
It's just sort of like general sort of like war crimes. I mean, they have done a lot of torture. They've done a lot of like razing villages, burning heretics. Just the general organization in itself is very like brimstone and fire. They're like the holy brand, if you will, of the Church of the Holy Light. So I guess it would just be like war crimes in that sense. I mean, I was going to talk about how Sally Whitemane, the High Inquisitor of the Scarlet Crusade back in Vanilla, gets raised as a horseman in the Death Knight campaign. And when she raises up, she's like, oh, it's like, I thought like, I might have been absolved for like my crimes, but I guess this is like what is, I guess this is like my torment for all the atrocities I committed.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is like the Scarlet Crusade is definitely a big learning thing for me because I haven't been 100% like invested in that. So you guys are going to be teaching me a lot of really cool stuff today about it.
Well, any more questions?
Oh, I'm going to have a lot of them.
Shirviu says that it seems like there was a bit of a civil war within the Scarlets or something from the plaques on the wall in the armory of Herod's room. Now, the statues in the old armory of Scarlet Monastery actually show the heroes or the people who the Scarlets revere, and one of them being Baron Westerwind. If anyone played through Wrath, they should know who that guy is.
Oh no.
Did you want to talk about Baron Westwind, Rin?
Believe it or not, I didn't play through Wrath of the Lich King.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I joined End of Wrath, actually. I just dodged that.
Dang.
Okay, well, I guess I can fill in people. So basically, Baron Westwind was a captain of the fleet of the Scarlets. He sailed to Northrend, I think, with Arthas, but I'm not too sure about that particular part. But he was in Northrend before the Scarlet Onslaught went to Northrend after being the Scarlet Enclave was attacked by the Death Knights of Arcturus. And so basically, the Scarlets flee. They go to Northrend. They establish New Hearthglen. They establish Scarlet Point in the Dragonblight. And then, as a horde, you quest in those zones. I'm not sure if Alliance do or not. I haven't done Dragonblight as an Alliance. But you come across, I think it's Bridget.
Abendus?
Bendis, yes. And she is talking to Baron Westwind, and you go in and you fight her, you kill her, you take a journal that she has, and Baron Westwind gets a bubble around him and he walks out, and he tells you he's Mal'Ganis. Now, Baron Westwind obviously died in the first sort of campaign in Northrend, and Mal'Ganis assumed his identity. And this seems to be an ongoing sort of thing that the Scarlet Crusade tends to have going for it, because it's not the first time a Dreadlord has infiltrated and taken over the organization, if you will.
Interesting. Wow. So, since a lot of lore people, they know that the Crusade is made up from remnants and fanatics of the Silver Hand, resulting in the Scourge with Lordaeron. What would you think would make such people become fanatics like that? I get the Scourge is a scare, but to become such a fanatic and wielding light, which is clearly going to be something in BFA that's going to be a big deal regarding the light, because we're already seeing it with Magar, Oryx, etc. and so forth. Do you think that the Scarlet Crusade is possibly going to be with these fanatics of light in the upcoming expansion?
I mean, it's possible. The light has always had a part of it which sought out justice and retribution. I mean, Tyrion Fordring was supposed to be the holy embodiment of retribution, and Uther was supposed to be the holy embodiment of justice. So it's not a stretch, at least for me, to think that a light wielder could actually fall to sort of a disgrace by following or idolizing those particular parts of the light over the other sides of compassion and understanding.
Interesting. So, let's kind of dive into, since they have a bunch of kind of strongholds. You get it in Wrath of the Lich King with, of course, their town in Eastern, is it Eastern Plaguelands or Western?
They have one in both.
They have one in both, and then of course we have their infrastructure of the Scarlet Monastery. So let's kind of dive into Scarlet Monastery right now, because I mean we can kind of move our way geographically from there, and kind of talk about each area and their influences. So let's kind of talk about Scarlet Monastery. Now everybody remembers I forget his name. He's ends up being undead. You take a lever and you end up seeing him in vanilla. He's dead now and non-interactable in current retail. But do you guys have any interesting insights on shoot, what's his name again?
High Inquisitor Fairbanks.
Yes, thank you.
I remember doing it and thinking it was very strange that an undead was in this secret room that you had to pull the lever and go in and attack him. I don't actually really know too much about Fairbanks. I get the kind of vibe that he's the Scarlet's sort of Alonza's foul, though.
That's how I felt about him as well too. I was like, ugh. He's a strange character, and I always found him really fun to go and do, even though he's just a side thing in the instance. I just found him really quirky and kind of creepy.
Yeah, in Cathedral you also had the sort of I think it happened, but I'm not sure because I didn't have this back in vanilla. But there was something to do with the corrupted Ashbringer or something, or it was like theorized that the corrupted Ashbringer questline or something had something to do with Morgraine. That was a boss in Cathedral alongside what's her face? I just said it earlier.
High Inquisitor
Whitemane.
Whitemane.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool back in vanilla when you bring in corrupted Ashbringer. It gave this whole entire like breakdown of it, of once being corrupted, kind of explaining of how it was like made and everything. It was very cool. I wish it was still around because that was something else.
So from Scarlet Monastery, like I know we've got Graveyard that had the I think he was a lich down the bottom. We had Armory, and we also had Cathedral. In the remake of the Cataclysm dungeon, you have like the Scarlet Crusader in the library, the one that is burning all the books. You have the brother of, I think he might still even be Houndmaster Loki, but it could not, it might not be. I haven't done Scarlet Monastery for a while. You have Armory doesn't really exist much anymore. Like it's a part of library now. It's not its own dungeon. And yeah, so like where I'm going with this is that I found it strange that they felt the need to remake our old Scarlet Monastery.
I definitely agree. Now, the guy burning the books, I always found that interesting. It's almost like he's like wiping out like important history of themselves and like really key moments in history, like with that whole entire fight. It was always a fun one. But Rin, do you have any information on that guy? Because he's quite something else too.
All I've gotten to do is speculation, and I definitely feel like he's called Flame Master Kogler, if I believe.
Yeah.
And my pure idea, which I'm pretty headstrong, I'm on the ball, but I feel like they would have had names of high up people and then things they've done. They'd keep track of everything they've done, everywhere they've hit, so they could keep it in a pretty straight index, because they were so caught up, and still are so caught up in this idea of just wiping out all the Scourge, no matter who they are or what affiliations they hold to either faction. They want to get rid of them so much that I feel like they eventually get obsessed with bookkeeping and making sure like this is where we've gotten, this is where we've cleansed, this is who did it, this is where who and who is, and this is the first person that would be able to go to said place if there was an attack. So I feel like when we're breaching their monastery, like one of their main bases, their automatic idea is to get rid of the evidence, because we're probably going to take it, because we see even in quest items we're told to get codexes for Lillian Voss, who's the hooded figure. So books hold a really big part of the quest lines for at least Lillian Voss, because I think most of the quest lines you do for her or in dungeons she's affiliated with, you have to get books, you have to read. So when you're taking all these books, I suppose they're going, well, we better dispose of them before they take another one, because that's how we're probably finding them. That's probably how we're getting there, is getting these books, and then that's going to throw them away. So I feel like it was a panic, but I don't know why they'd have so many of them in this one place.
Well, it is called a library. It's interesting that you mentioned Lillian Voss. In the Forsaken starting area, so in Tirisful Glades, you actually like run into her fairly early on, and the quest line is basically that she dies, she gets reanimated, she runs off. Then you find her again, and she's attacking Scarlet Crusaders. And then you find out that she's the daughter of the leader of the Scarlet Crusade at the moment. I think he's the leader of the entire organization, or he's just the leader of the Scarlet, sort of like Scarlets within Tirisfal. But that they purposely made her be the way that she is. She was forced to learn magic of everything. She was forced to be an assassin, and her actual sort of like job, or her role that she was going to be, was like this an amazing assassin for the Scarlets, except for she dies, and then her dad doesn't want anything to do with her because she's the monster that they are trying to attack. And then you go through Tirisfal, and at the end of it, she still can't accept the fact that she's undead, and she goes. And then the next time you see her is, well, you see a hooded figure in Scarlet Monastery, and yeah, she's after the Blades of the Anointed Champion, which you go in, you take from a statue, then you like plunge them into, sorry, you take it from a boss, then you get them blessed by a statue, then you plunge them into Sally Whitemane's body so she can't rise again. And then she takes them as her own blades. So I don't know what sort of a ritual that is, but it's pretty messed up. And it seems like it's a Scarlet sort of like ritual. And then after that, like we meet her again in Scholomance, of all places, where she says her like trademark line of "Die, necromancer." But man, I love that part. But yeah, she seems to be a very strange individual, because she seems to still hold on to the zealotry and sort of like the weird embodiments that most Scarlet Crusaders have, even though she's like undead.
Yeah, the human side of her and the fanatic side of her still kind of is there and exists. She's a very in-depth character that I think a lot of people love. Like, a lot of people fell in love with her.
I think with the Blades of the Anointed, I feel like maybe they're, like, I'm not confirming any of this is true, but I think the Scarlets, from what I can take from the whole idea of like her having to plunge them into Sally for her to not resurrect again, and then Sally being able to resurrect other people again, I feel like there could be the idea of those swords are the only thing that can kill people. So when they have to get rid of people, they have them on hand, because they do execute some people for a heresy or whatever you want to call it, because they're insane, so they obviously would have a magical blade to do that. So her taking them, maybe she, like, her knowledge from being a part of such a high up family within the whole Scarlet Crusade, her taking those blades could be the only thing to actually officially kill off a Scarlet Crusader. But then that's kind of like the whole idea of that, like if you have blades, like these two blades, or one blade, yeah, it's two blades, but if you have these two blades that are the only things that can actually kill a Scarlet Crusader, you're kind of turning your people into the thing you're fighting, because it takes a lot of effort to kill an undead, you know, and they're really quick to replenish. Like one goes and then the infection spreads, and that's how it works. So maybe they're the only way you can actually officially kill a Scarlet Crusader, because they constantly have this hex on them. But then, would it still be there when if they're turned undead, and does Lillian Voss have those, and they're the only thing that can kill her? That's an idea as well, because she has this habit of just disappearing and coming back whenever she wants to, rather than whenever is good for us. So I wonder if we'll see her.
That would be really cool. I mean, just like Grix has said, that she is in the Rogue Order Hall as well too, as a formidable foe still, and she's rocking it out. But since we're on the topic of Scarlet's becoming undead and being the embodiment of what they can't stand, you've got Iron Spine, we've got Fairbanks, of course, we've got the Fallen Champion, and what's the other one? Blood Mage Thanos?
we have the faction of the Risen in Tyr's Hand and
That too.
Undead Strat. Not Undead Strat, Living Strat. It's now Undead Strat too.
I mean, we might as well put the Headless Horseman in there too because he likes to show up there as well on certain holidays. But you know, that's here nor there. So we do have all this on death, and it's just like, why aren't they taking care of these of something that they hate so much? You know, I don't know if I'm missing any key points of why they have these undead around, regardless with something that is their embodiment of the hatred. So, and why they are. So I find that very interesting of that they still have undeath within their ranks, and this problem, just like how you said, Rin, is that they have this untimely fate where it's down the road, all of them end up being a form of scourge. In the end, they are doing such a disservice to themselves with their fanatic rituals and everything that they essentially become what they hate.
Yeah, there's also the interesting. I'm just going back to when Ren was talking about hexes and stuff being placed on them.
Right.
In New Hearthglen, one of the quests that you do there is about the Raven Priests. And in Bendis's journal, she talks about how Baron Westerwin teaches them this special sort of prayer that they walk around and they put on people. The Raven Priests themselves look like they're in shadow form, and they've got 3 ravens that are flying above their heads, which they'll use to attack you if you get too close. But yes, that particular blessing comes from a Dreadlord. So I have to wonder, when Balnazar took over Sidon Dethrahan, was there anything similar to that effect? And when the pressure was put on him, he sort of like flicked a switch, almost like so it turns from a blessing to a curse and caused them to become the Risen, because it affected the Scarlets in Tyr's Hand, and it also affected the Scarlets in the Scarlet Bastion of Stratholme. What do you guys think?
So are you basically essentially that Balnazar spread his knowledge of that spell, etc., and it's kind of like giving that out, like?
Yeah, like we saw in New Hearthglen with Westerwind, so like Mal'Ganis pretending to be Westwind, he gave them a special blessing to put on the Scarlet Crusaders, which kept them safe from the effects of the blight. I have to wonder if that's what was keeping the Scarlets. It wasn't so much it was the light that was protecting them from the scourge, it was actually this, if it's the same thing, and Mal'Ganis did actually do this, the blessing, Balnazar did do this, that it was actually the protection of Balnazar that was keeping the Scarlets free to attack the scourge. And then when he was under attack, or when he died in the Scarlet Bastion, when adventurers came into the Scarlet Bastion and killed him, upon his death, did that blessing which saved them from the blight and the scourge, actually became a curse. So it's like a double-edged sword. Like, it protects you on one hand, but if the person dies, then it, like, the blessing removes life from you.
That'd be incredibly dark and scary, and that would be incredibly nuts, and I wouldn't rule it out at all. That's oh, Dreadlords.
But then the question is, if it's removing life from you, is that to actually resurrect them or give them a piece of life energy to at least transport them to somewhere else so they can actually start regenerating? Because I don't know how much life force it takes to resurrect a Dreadlord, or if they can resurrect, or whatever you want to say. But if he did place a spell, I know it's taking the life from people, if it's taking their life essence, that could at least give him at least some power to transport himself somewhere, and then he could be out there regenerating.
Oof, that'd be disgusting too.
Well, didn't we see him on the Broken Shore? Like, wasn't he standing there amongst them all?
I'm pretty sure Balnazar was on the Broken Shore.
Yeah, but in midst of all the 10 billion famous demons.
Yeah, just going back to it, it's because it's always like confused me. Like, I can understand the ones in the Scarlet Bastion in Stratholme being turned to Risen, but I could never understand why you had the quest givers from old Nax in Vanilla go back to Tyr's hand and then become Risen. Like, it didn't make any sense to me as to why that was the case. So the only way in my little poor little feeble brain could like sort of handle that was if Balnazar placed a blessing that was very similar to Mal'Gannis's in Northrend, and that's why we have the Risen today.
I definitely think that's how it works.
Definitely. Now, since we're still on the topic, kind of close to monastery and Tristfall Glades, do you feel that since they hate the Forsaken so much and whatnot, do you feel that they've been stressed to the point of like they are like literally like the last like living things in that area? Do you think that it's a stress form of fanaticism with them attacking? Because I mean, there's only a few farmers left over in Tristfall Glades, and they are protecting them. So I mean, it's almost like a last ditch effort by them, I feel like, because they do constantly get beat down.
Yeah, they're protecting Soledin Farmstead, that if you're questing as a Forsaken, you go to that farmstead and you have to kill 10 farmers and collect pumpkins, like 8 or probably something, but you have to steal the pumpkins and you have to kill the farmers. And that's a way of directly hurting the Scarlet Crusade before you actually venture inside the walls of their base. Because they're kind of hanging on to those farmers. Those farmers are the last living people, like not soldiers, they're just last living civilians. So they think they're doing right by hanging on to that and protecting them, because that was their whole goal and the whole point. Like, their whole original goal was not to actually get this insane loser way, or just go insane and try to kill every single undead and actually forget the true purpose. Their first ideology was they're going to get rid of all the Scourge and then they could eventually like give these back to the people. But then eventually they just fell under their own ways. So I think there is still that little bit, like, that's the last piece of humanity you can see, and you can see the original idea, but you can see how small it is by how small of it they've done. Like, there's only really about, I'd say there's only like 30 farmers, and they're just NPCs. So if we're going by a canon amount of farmers, we probably have about 3 families living there. So they're not really protecting much people, and they're hanging on to them by a loose thread there. Because the undead know they're so valuable to them, but they're kind of letting it string on until that one quest.
I think the undead just want the pumpkins, to be honest. They can't grow their own pumpkins, so they have to steal them.
Yeah. They're their suppliers.
Yeah, so I was just thinking again, because that's what I do, about Scarlet Monastery and the Scarlets in there. But this is about the fanaticism that they show. I don't think they would be as fanatical if Balnazar didn't take control through Saidan Dethrahan. So Saidan Dethrahan was captured during the War of Lordaeron, so the War on the Scourge. He was tortured and he was killed, and assumed like Balnazzar assumed control. And it was at that point that the Scarlets then started to really break away from the Silver Hand, the Brotherhood of the Light. The Argent Crusade was made up of people who didn't like where the Scarlet Crusade was going. So that was another splinter group from the actual Scarlet Crusade. So we had the Paladins of the Silver Hand, then the Scarlet Crusade, and then we had the Argent Dawn. And I still think that the turning point for the Scarlets was when Balnazzar became the leader of them.
Definitely, I agree too. Because there was a point where they weren't fanatical, like they were kind of right along with the rest of them and the Church of Holy Light. Like they weren't seen as in a way heretics. So I definitely think that Balnazzar led them down to a path of spiraling descent in the end, which is unfortunate, but the ultimate end goal of what they're hoping to do, which is probably a lot of a hot mess, especially possibly involved with the old gods.
No, Alunef, not tailing Fordring. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for those feels.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Dodge.
Dodge it.
Yeah, speaking of different names and stuff, I believe, I don't know if my knowledge is like properly right from this, but my brain is telling me that Bridget Abendis, the daughter of Abendis, who was one of the founders, along with Isilin for the Scarlet Crusade, she eventually saw her father Abendis die due to the Scourge. He died in her arms during a Scourge invasion of the Scarlet Crusade. And then eventually, this was in Northrend, and she was the one who kind of took over in New Hearthglen, if that's what they call the settlement. And then she was the one that actually changed the name to the Scarlet Onslaught, or at least she led a Scarlet Onslaught at some point. That's what I remember.
All right. Do you guys have anything else about like Scarlet Monastery that you wanted to add in before we move on to heading towards Scholomance and Hearthglen for the Western Plaguelands?
No, apart from Blades of Light.
Aye. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and move on towards Scholomance, because I remember vaguely in vanilla with the area, with Uther's tomb, of course, and all that great stuff, because hail Uther, and Lhok, you won't agree with me on that. I know that for a fact. But Scholomance in recent years, I think it was in Cataclysm, where they brought a lot more Scarlet Crusade into the fold in that instance, which I still haven't gotten that toy out of there, which frustrates me.
Yeah, in Scholo, you go in there at the behest of Lillian Voss, or at least you meet Lillian Voss in there. I can't remember the flow on quest for it, but I do know Voss is in there. I do know. Oh no, that's right. It's a flow on effect from the Battle of Anderhol. So yeah, because the Horde and the Alliance are fighting over Anderhol, and they want Scholomance because it's a bastion of necromantic power, and they want it cleansed out of all of that. And so yeah, you go in there and then you meet Lillian Voss, and she's in there because she wants to kill Ganling. And Ganling taunts her with the beauty of undeath, and he really gives me a creeper vibe, sort of similar to Ganling is fairly similar to Sylvanas in the fact that he likes to raise undead.
Huh, interesting. That's really cool to know. Mr. Drake makes a really cool point too, where Uther's tomb being updated. Hopefully, we do see some Scarlet Crusade stuff. That would be incredible. I mean, because they kind of gone on the back fold, in my opinion, in recent times. What do you guys think? Would you guys like to see more Scarlet Crusade stuff? I mean, I would. I'm still like learning about them and kind of getting to know their whole background. I've always enjoyed Scarlet Monastery and stuff and Scholomance, but never really truly dove into their craziness because they are nuts.
I personally would love to see a ton more from them, simply because me being Rinweki, I'm seeing a lot of the whole idea of the conforming to the whole idea of peace and tranquility to light with Anduin. But I feel like that opinion's going to change in Battle for Azeroth because he's definitely going to grow up and see the whole ideals of being a king. But this isn't about Anduin. I definitely think it's nice to see the different side of the light and the whole idea of you don't have to be peaceful and you don't have to be tranquil. You just have to have that one base good idea, and you can wreak whatever havoc you want as long as that one base idea, the light believes in it, because you don't choose the light chooses you. And you got to remember, Arthas was training like his whole childhood up to being a paladin, and when he did his induction with the silver hand, he was rejected by the light at first. So you have to have a good idea, but then when you have that one idea, the light's going to grant you its powers until you lose that faith. It's all about faith. It's not about how good you are, it's about how much you want it. And that's what scares me, because people like Anduin, they don't really realize that. Like, they think, or they at least feel, you have to be good about it, your attentions. But then eventually, if we bring the Scarlet Crusade into a more prominent storyline again, people are going to eventually realize that like the light isn't exactly this black and white thing, where it's a lot more gray, and you have to figure it out of how good it actually might be. And the Scarlet Crusade helped with that so much, and I don't think we'd actually be able to see that without them. So seeing them in an upcoming storyline would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm just reading the comments, and Alineth basically is talking about Uther's tomb with the undead surrounding it. I don't know if you guys played this. I know, Rin, you said you came in after Wrath, so you wouldn't have. But back in Vanilla, there was a quest called the Battle of Darashire, and it was about a holdout for paladins. They're either of the Argent Dawn, Silver Hand, or Scarlet Crusade at this particular one. You also might know of Darashir because it's where the little girl's doll is.
Heartbreaking quest.
Yeah. This quest for the Battle for Darashir, you actually go there because the spirits are restless, and you talk to Chromie, the little dragon, in the middle of the graveyard, because all the spirits are restless from like the sort of like history, I guess, if you will, of the place. So you kill spirits. You have to get a shield for Chromie so she can send you back in time to protect the town and prevent something from happening. I can't remember if it's someone has to turn over to the undead. No, that's right. You've got to stop a betrayal, but you have to let the guy still become undead because the true timeline must be preserved. So you do that, and you've got to wait for the paladins to come. And yeah, so that's a very heavy quest line. It involves the blood of heroes, the spirits scattered all throughout the Eastern Plaguelands. It deals very heavily with the paladins and the light and the crusaders and the Argent Dawn. And I just wanted to put that in there because they were talking about Uther's tomb with the undead. And this is a little snippet. You used to be able to get a shield from there that had the hands, the silver hand icon, and it had a line down the middle and a couple of swords, and you can't get that shield anymore. So if anyone has that out there, you've got one of the rarest transmog pieces you can ever find.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
And I'm very jealous.
Right? Exactly. So with that being said too is with Mr. Drake, since we're on that subject as well too for the area, that would be incredible if the Scarlet Crusade made an appearance in the Battle for Lordaeron to try and take that back, because let it be fanatics, they are part of the Alliance in a sense. That would be very cool to have them in there as a last, like, final kind of like push. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely do hope that they try a push to take over Lordaeron. I mean, they'll probably run into the blight and die and be turned into like undead. That seems to be the way that they go. But I definitely could see it, or at least I hope it happens.
What about you, Rin?
They're kind of notorious for making last stands. They really did do a good try in Northrend with pushing them back to the Icecrown Glacier. So I don't know, man. My answer would be similar to Locke's, but yeah.
Shirviu's also Shirviu's also same with like Hearthglen being in the area so close to Scarlet Monastery. They're literally almost like butted up to each other on the map. With underground things. They have a mine over in Hearthglen too, don't they? And who knows? Maybe that's a form of a connection.
I know they used to have a termite-infested looking camp there.
Yeah, they did.
True.
I was going to actually mention Hearthglen. You can't really talk about the Scarlets without talking about Talon Fordring. Oh my goodness, I'm probably going to cry about this.
Oh no.
So basically, in classic or vanilla, whichever one you want to call it, you would meet Tyrion Fordring as an old hermit in a hut that was very close to the border between Western Plaguelands and Eastern Plaguelands. And you would do a very long quest chain, which would take you into Strat to get a family painting. It would take you all over the place. And it eventually ended up, for those who don't know a little bit of the backstory of Tyrion, he was a paladin of Silverhand. He was exiled from his lands because he wouldn't kill Eitrig, a Blackrock orc that wanted to live in peace. And so he was exiled by Uther and had his titles, lands, and his family sort of taken from him. And I can't really remember where I heard this, but someone said, or I read something, that Uther then gave Talon Fordring to the Scarlet Crusade to sort of help become a paladin like his dad. Worst mistake ever, and if it's true, I hate Uther even more. So you go through the quest line, you get the family portrait, you go into Hearthglen, you meet Talon, who's the commander for the Scarlet Crusade. You actually break him free of his mindset of like kill everyone, like all that sort of stuff. You say to him, look, your dad's still alive. Tyrion is going to meet you at this tower that's along the road. So like if you come with me, like we can do this. So then you escort him down to the watchtower, and then the Scarlets kill him. They kill Talon Fordring for leaving their organization. What a bunch of scumbags.
That's terrible. I don't remember that at all, actually.
It's sad times.
I cried. And then, yeah, Tyrion takes his body and, like, buries it and is super sad, too.
Damn. That's rough. See, that's the one thing that I don't like about the Scarlet Crusade is just because someone doesn't follow your idea, it's just like, get rid of them, all of them, which doesn't help your cause, in my opinion. Like, that's just putting you in a bind.
I think it was not just that, though, but he would have obviously had a lot of information as well from being a commander. And when you're so obsessed with your ideals, you're going to be so paranoid about people finding out how dark you truly are, because we know they use torture, gruesome forms of torture, because of the Iron Maidens down in Cathedral or anywhere you go. They've the Houndmasters, Houndmaster Braun is the one that's there now, and they just relentlessly just let you be ripped apart by dogs. Like they don't care how you die as long as you die, and letting that get out there is gonna make Alliance and Horde, any faction, want to fight back onto them more. So I feel like the minute someone wants to leave, it's an automatic. They need to die, or else we're going to be exposed.
Right. Did any of you ever get satisfaction of doing the Death Knight quest where you had to poke them and torture them? It's like getting like a taste of their own medicine.
Oh,
No.
darkly, yes.
Really, you didn't enjoy that? I did.
No, I didn't. I could never be a Scarlet. I couldn't. I can't even torture the people who torture everyone. Actually, speaking of the Scarlet torturers, there was an Alterac guy in Scarlet Monastery Graveyard that you would get like a ring, like you were asked to go and go and kill his family to get a ring back because he took the ring off an undead and gave it to his wife. Like, what the hell?
What? That's disgusting. That's like grave robbing. Like, ew. And then the thing is, like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, if a husband is just like, I found this on a beautiful scourge, the ring is gorgeous, put it on your finger. Like, no, you nasty. Like, that's gross.
Vicious. That's the guy.
Oof.
Do we want to move to Scarlet Bastion and the Scarlet Throne in Strat?
Sure,
absolutely. Let's dive in.
So I touched on it in the Tyrion Fordring questline. The Scarlets do tend, and this is what sort of twigged my mind with Vicious stealing the ring. Basically, they take a picture called Of Love and Family from Tyrion, and they put it into the Scarlet Bastion. The reason why I mention this is because I was always confused as to why it looked like it did. So you'd go into Scarlet Bastion, and it's sitting out there on the wall, and Of Love and Family, the portrait of his family is supposed to be of his family, is actually a picture of planets.
That's true.
That's what it looks like in the game.
It's literally like a picture of this brown planet with some like Saturn-like rings going around it, right? And then there's like a blue one in the back as well. Or I don't know, colorblind. I could get my colors wrong.
Yeah, but you're right in the description is of a planet with Saturn rings around. I don't know what the color is.
Are you talking about that really goofy picture that's in the quest line where you have to get priceless art? Oh, God.
Yeah. So not only do the Scarlets like attack people for not being Scarlets, they also like steal things.
Nice. So I hate to say this, but are they Nazis?
Wow! Oh my goodness!
Because they stole a lot of priceless art too. Just saying, like Nazis.
Actually, yeah, they had a ton of gold and a ton of art, and anything that was valuable they would take. And they also had the whole ideology that they had to get rid of people the minute they left too. Yeah, so you can make the comparisons, but I don't think they're as bad on that level.
Plus, the Nazis weren't like driven by a dreadlord.
Oh God.
But yes, anyway, so in the Scarlet Bastion, you did have Scarlet holdouts, you had mages, you had monks. Scarlets were pretty much in vanilla the only place where you would see monks. You would have, of course, Balnazar, Sathra, Dethrahan, Dethrahan at the very end, who sat upon the Scarlet Throne. Now, the Scarlet Bastion actually was the centerpiece for the Knights of the Silver Hand. That's where it actually started from, and the Scarlets took it over. I don't know why they have a Scarlet Throne in there. Do you know much about that, Rin?
Nope.
because yeah, that's also always like sort of made me question what the hell is going on. Like, why would they have a throne? But the room in itself also kind of reminded me of the Lordaeron room, like the Lordaeron throne room. So it could just be a harken back to that. But yeah, anyway, you had the cannoneer, you had the monks, you had Scythe and Deathrohan, you had the symbol of Tyr being the Church of the Holy Lights symbol. And yeah, basically it was just their sort of like bastion of power. In vanilla, you used to have a courier, a Scarlet Courier, go from Strath to Tyr's hand, and they would go down the road and they would kill anyone who was silly enough to get in their way, because they were all elites as well.
Yeah, I remember getting killed by it because I wasn't paying attention. That was a long time ago.
I joined when everything got nerfed. Haha, pay to win.
So yeah, I don't know, that everything with Hearthglen, and then the presence with Tyr, and you've got Cathraxia and everything involved. I'm not surprised Balnazzar ultimately ended up being involved with this, because let's be real, like Dreadlords are kind of directly linked to like old gods and all of that kind of stuff. It's uncanny how all of this kind of lays in place and kind of travels along in this beautiful little line up the map. Very true, Gizmo. Definitely with Balnazzar and whatnot and being tricked. Definitely covering up tracks of being investigated and whatnot. I mean, ultimately they did, regardless, end up being named heretics, but yeah, it's fun.
Actually, just thinking about this just before we go for a break, because I need to use the bathroom. Just announced that on YouTube. Woo, go me. In vanilla, there was a Scarlet Crusader for the Alliance. There wasn't one for Horde, but there was one that would give you a breadcrumb quest. He stood in Deathless and Nadil's Point in the inn, and I remember having to sort of talk to him, and he was just like, guys, I think there's something going wrong. Like, this is, I'm sort of paraphrasing because it's been ages since I've seen this, but he speaks about how he thinks that there's something wrong going on in the Scarlet Crusade, that he's noticed that his brethren are getting more and more militarized, more and more like zealots and all that sort of stuff, and he wants you to go and like stop them. And I wonder if it's because he was so far away from them all that he was able to reflect on that and actually like see what was happening, as opposed to like it's almost as if like there was some form of like mind control. And we know like Dreadlords are very good at that, or mind manipulation going on. Because again, when I spoke about Talon Fordring, when you go up there and talk to him, he's still like, no, I need to like kill everyone, I need to do this. And then it's just like, your dad's alive, like I can take you to him. He's like, wait, what? And that's when he causes, like, it's almost as if someone like broke the mind control link that was on in his head.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, that's been ages for that one. That's an incredible quest line. There's a couple other too of Scarlets that kind of like see through the thing and are very neutral on the fact, but don't go into the fray of the Scarlet Crusade. They're out there, but they stay away from the whole madness of that whole area. They're like, nope. So it's pretty cool. That's a really good insight, Lhok. Glad you mentioned that. But anyway, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to talk about Archbishop Benedictus and his crazy self, because that guy's a bag of nuts, cashews, you name it, almonds, peanuts, bag of peanuts, guys. We'll be back for that. really cool guy. I don't know if a lot of you guys ever hear of him. Some people don't really ever talk about him, but Benedictus was a student of Alanis Fall. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He helped train a bunch of warriors who helped defend the Alliance from the Orc invasion that happened for the First and Second War. Really interesting dude, kind of shady, and we're definitely going to dive into some major speculation with him because Rin's got a lot of them, Lhok's got a lot of them. I'm learning about him, and I've got some ideas on him, so we're definitely going to dive into this. So, Rin, what do you feel about Benedictus being in the church with Foul's Holy Order of Northshire Clerics and the Church of Holy Light with him?
Okay, yeah. So, just to give like a little bit of backstory. So, yeah, as Vaski said, he was a student and successor of Alonsus Foul for the head of Church of the Light, which is in Stormwind. When Varian went missing, Benedictus was the one that kept the hope together with his face in the light, and he's said to have sent people to raise a friend's downs for some reason. And even when Varian returned, Benedictus used his faith in the light as a way to defend his city and people. He was a student of Alonsus Foul. As you said, he trained warriors to help defend from the invasions of orcs and horde invasions during the First and Second War. And Foul's Holy Order of Northshire Clerics would become both the foundation for the Silver Hand and the modern Church of Light. Foul was either he was either from Stratholme or first came to like knowledge within there. He was known as Bishop Foul when he came across Uther, and Uther was one of the ones who came the first paladins, Trallian, Gavadon the Dire, Satan, Dathradan, Uther himself, Tyrion Fordring. They were all the first paladins. But they were all made from the evacuation of Northshire, the destruction of Stormwind during the reign of Lane, Father Varian. That's all I really know about him, because I think that's all I've ever been really given. But I'm not sure, and I don't think many people are. We're not sure how the corruption actually got to him. But I know myself that when Anduin originally wanted to train within the light, he wanted to go with Balin. And Varian didn't like that, because Varian's a very possessive person. Ever since the death of Tiffin, he was automatically headstrong that he was going to keep Anduin in the palace until the age of 32, and he wasn't allowed to get married. It was kind of like that whole idea. But like he was so headstrong, so he was like, no, stay. You can train under Archbishop Benedictus. So he was kind of seen as this head of light. He was the best person you could go to within there. He was trusted, even within the House of Nobles when the whole thing was going on around the paying the stonemasons and stuff. He was kind of like an equal. So he had a big piece of Stormwind just through that whole religious belief, but then eventually he fell into madness somehow. I don't know if Lhok knows how that happened, but I know personally I don't.
Interesting. I'm actually not versed of how he came into madness either. Lhok, do you by chance know?
I think it was just I don't really know, but I have a feeling it sort of like happened after the Third War, where like everyone was like traumatized at the events of that, and I think he dabbled, or some of his followers dabbled with the void, and in Benedictus's backstory, he lived through the First and Second Wars, and his faith in the light, it wasn't always 100% resolute. Like, he saw atrocities and he questioned his faith in the light. The Second War came along and he questioned his faith in the light. I believe around this time, like he kind of like thought that, like, you know, like these were tests, trials, you know, the sort of like religious things that like people go through. Yeah, I think after the Third War is where he became quite troubled with the whole like undead thing. I mean, who wouldn't? Because he was a priest, I wouldn't be surprised if some of like his followers were actual shadow priests, and maybe that's how it sort of happened. More and more people of that sort of like ilk sort of like gathered around him, and he sort of like fell that way. Maybe, I mean, that's my sort of like thoughts.
It's pretty crazy to go from something that's so light down all the way to the Twilight Hammer. It's just funny how you can be on a high up status and whatnot, fall that far. It's a very interesting character. All of us find him sketchy, I'm sure. I found him sketchy from the very beginning. It didn't make sense to me, especially being so close proximity with Scarlet Crusade and many other things. How long have you guys found him to be sketchy from your playtime?
Absolutely sketchy, like from pretty much day one.
Sad times of when I when I started properly playing, because I was kind of a bit of a kid and I was more interested in decorating my character than actually playing. So when I actually started getting into the story, I was about 9 or something, I don't know, but it was Cataclysm anyway, so like the whole thing was spoiled for me from leveling before I ever got to notice he was sketchy myself. But when I started reading into human lore and stuff, because I was forced to be a horde, when I started getting into humans and the Alliance on my own, I definitely, like, you just get that vibe off him. Like, he's just no good. And I'm so glad Anduin didn't study under him, or oh my god, we'd have such a different story right now.
Right? Now, here's a cool thing that Gizmo's mentioning. Deathwing may have manipulated him from the inside. I mean, Stormwind has been infiltrated by the Black Dragonflight and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a falling into of how it is down to the Twilight cult, even with him being part of it. Like, that could have been a whole entire catalyst of a open window for him to turn the way he did. So I think that's a really cool insight, Gizmo.
I do think, yeah, definitely, like, Katrana Nixia could have played a hand in it, but I feel like she would have only played a small role, because that's all she really had to do when she was there. She only really had to do like a little small thing, and then all of a sudden she had like an enormous grip on people.
Right.
This is just me sort of like throwing this idea out there, but do you think if Deathwing's flight did manipulate him somehow, do you think it did come from Onyxia through Tiffin? Because like Benedictus was like Tiffin's confessor, as far as like I thought. Like, do you think like that's a way that like the old gods could have influenced him?
I feel like that would be one for that's a really cool speculation. I think that's something Ren could possibly see insight to, because that would be, ooh.
Okay, so the whole thing with Tiffin, we really don't know much. Like, I'm just going off what I've noticed from really small things we get from Varian. Varian doesn't speak about her much, understandably. But I do know she did have that whole thing with Archbishop Benedictus. And there was the whole thing with Tiffin's locket and all that stuff. But I don't think Tiffin would have had that much of a relationship with Katrana. Like, I don't know if it would have got through like Tiffin herself. Maybe it could have been through Tiffin could have like introduced him to the House of Nobles and that whole like line of political goodness, because of course she was married into the family for the political state for Westfall. But I don't think she would have done it like subconsciously or whatever you want to call it, like absolutely led him to Onyxia or Katrana. I think it would have happened kind of passively from what she thought was a good idea. Because everything she did was out of the goodness of her heart from what was on the plaque on her grave. That isn't there anymore. Well, we're not going to get salty over that.
But we can, though. How dare they take Tiffin's plaque out? How dare they?
I still remember. I raged.
The reason why I sort of mentioned it because there's that story you mentioned it with the locket that Benedictus asked Varian to meet him. I think in the gardens behind the cathedral or something like that, and Anduin was there, and then after Benedictus leaves, like the whole thing was a trap, and the Twilight cultists try to assassinate them or something. So it was just, that was what I was sort of like wondering, whether or not the nod was that it was Tiffin who sort of like helped, because it was about Tiffin's locket, that sort of is a nod towards maybe Benedictus being corrupted that way. I don't know. I'm just sort of like throwing ideas out there. I don't really know too much about this whole thing.
Yeah, no. I think. I mean, I really don't want to think like Tiffin would be the whole pinnacle of that, because I just want her to be a sweet woman. The whole that locket is really what kind of keeps the family together, because Tiffin, even though she's gone, she's kind of the one thing that keeps Varian and Anduin from absolutely hating each other and going to different sides of the continent and pretending they don't know each other. Tiffin's kind of the one thing that kind of like brings them together and allows Varian to actually be a good father, which he wasn't for a very long time. But he gets that sense like, I have to do this, so he does it because of Tiffin. So I think that locket was definitely more of a way to persuade Varian, because Anduin's easily led, especially if it's by someone who is involved in the light. But Varian would need that taking of something belonging to Tiffin. And that was actually the day they kind of made up as well. That's the day when they kind of had the official father-son bond begin. I do think that Tiffin could have done something, even in death or life, to be the pushover. Like maybe when she died, he ended up falling into the arms of Katrana, because it could have been like the whole female idol in the midst of all the men of Stormwind. But I don't know. We still don't know a hell of a lot about Tiffin. We don't know.
Right.
we really
they're all
don't
kind
know.
of they're all kind of interconnected. Now, Patrick gives a really cool thing of like, if he did have it, why take 10 years to give it to Varian? Why? Like, unless that's
Right,
just
exactly.
people in the design team taking their sweet old time doing something like that. But 10 years to hold on to something and then finally give it away, that's a little sketchy in my opinion too. You're gonna hold on to something unless they were that good of friends and you didn't want to give up a memento of her or something. I mean, the sky's the limit of what could have been and why.
I think I might know why it took 10 years. It was the backup plan in case the next year's like splitting of Varian didn't work.
Oh, that's dark.
Yeah. That's the way the Black Dragons like to work, though.
Yeah, right.
But Rin, the locket with Benedictus, that's where Varian actually dies to the ambush, yeah? And then, like, Anduin, like, is like, no, Dad! And, like, reses him, correct?
Yep, Anduin uses his amazing light powers at the age of, say, about 15, 16, to actually resurrect someone, which is insane power, may I add. I think only, like, one or two people, two is pushing it, has actually resurrected someone in canonical lore. So that's just showing you how much power he's actually holding. That locket, man, that locket goes through so much speculation. I don't actually know a lot about the locket, to be honest. Like, I know, shame on me for not knowing a lot about the locket. I know it was Tiffin's, and I know Anduin has it now, and I know that whole story of how it was given to him and stuff. But I don't know that much about it, and I don't know, like, what it's meant to do. I do know, people, including Shirviu, speculate that it was helping in the creation of the pocket watch that was given to Varian. Just to talk about the pocket watch for a minute, because I do know a little bit about the pocket watch. You can see it in the Legion cinematic at the start when he's given his "My son, terrible darkness has come upon us," blah 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 blah. But it has a picture of Anduin in it, and it was made for Varian's birthday, when he just came back from Miss Pandaria, and you find that out from when you're walking with him, when you give it back in Legion, when you get it from the bottom of the sea and you give it back to him, and he tells you, like, oh, this is my father's compass, where did you get it? I got that for him for his birthday when I just came back. And then he's really relieved. So it seems like this whole thing of having something you can keep a picture in is a Rin thing. Or at least just a noble thing, maybe. Because I haven't seen it much in any other families. But this locket, I feel like there's a lot of history we could find out. And I really feel like with the removal of Tiffin's plaque, they're either trying to get people to talk about it more, or they're trying to forget about her. And I don't think it's the latter at all. Like, I think they're trying to get people to actually remember she exists, because I don't think anybody really knew she existed until people started going, where's Tiffin's plaque? So right. I just hope that this, like, locket has good lore, like a lot more lore behind it to what we actually have. But
and possibly more to come.
But I feel like if he's had this for so long, and he's been corrupted, like, has he put any spooky, like, spells on it or something? And now, like, it's in the Rin line again, like...
Yeah, and holding on to it for so long and then giving it, and him falling, because there could have been that corruption in between that, and what is that going to become of that?
Exactly.
And clearly BFA has these implications coming with Anduin growing and learning, and he has been growing since Mrs. Pandaria, but this is a catalyst for him now to really evolve and possibly even grow into another person. We all remember Anduin. He was a little horrible polygon model back in the day that had no personality. He's really grown into a big old boy, and it's going to be incredible to see with all of these heirlooms and that are part of the family that may be corrupted and may influence him in a way, especially with Benedictus being part of the Twilight Hammer. This is like a stepping stone for old gods, you name it. It's going to be crazy, of all these little tiny webs that are going to be intricate and linked together to this giant story. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Benedictus, like, and the locket and that sort of stuff does seem to weave its way in and out of, like, the main story. I'm actually surprised that the Dark Riders have Kara never seemed to want to go after the locket.
I was surprised by that too. You'd think, especially with Sylvanas being interested in trinkets and books and all these different fonts of power. Her and when Varimathras was alive, you get sent in vanilla to even get books in RFC that they needed. She was a collector of power and fonts and trying to tap into those things. So why didn't any of those Dark Rangers go after that for her?
Oh, I mentioned the Dark Riders of Kara. They're the ones. Okay. Yeah, we see them in Legion, but they're mentioned in Vanilla and in Kata. You are right though. Sylvanas does like go and collect like a whole bunch of stuff, from like jewelry to books to like anything that has power. But the reason why I mentioned the Dark Riders is because in Legion, certain classes met a priest named Kost. And this priest actually has something to do with Benedictus. He was booted out of Stormwind for being angry.
Out of all things to get booted out of Stormwind for.
Yeah, he quit from my sort of like reading and getting the sort of trying to get the backstory for Benedictus. I came across him and I thought, oh, this all like sort of makes sense. He's booted out of Stormwind because he was angry and he used to question like certain things that Benedictus was doing. I think that Benedictus actually just wanted to get rid of him because he was getting too close to the truth. And so he sent Kost off on a wild goose chase to try and retrieve an artifact. And he got ambushed by the Dark Riders. And yeah, so that's why I sort of like made mention of that, because it that sort of quest line and all that sort of stuff happened in Kata. And also what else happened in Kata was Deathwing like tried to destroy Stormwind. But it wasn't so much that like Deathwing wanted just to raise Stormwind. It was that he wanted to attack it enough that the inhabitants would actually like get disenfranchised with the light and actually head towards Benedictus for like a council and be they were fearful and all that stuff. So they would flock to Benedictus, so then Benedictus could potentially turn them into cultists. Like, how shifty is that?
That's very, very shifty. It's just crazy. Bye, Patrick. You have a great evening, okay?
Just one thing I want to add on with that whole thing of like Deathwing attacking Stormwind. The one part that never got fixed was the park, Rip Park, but I don't know why they left it like that. But I know the park was Tiffin's favorite place to be, and I don't know if that's a hint towards Tiffin having a relationship with this again, like the whole thing of Tiffin. I don't know. Like, it's really confusing. Like, could the death of Tiffin been the thing that pushed him over? Like, how the nicest ones are always the ones that go young. That whole idea, like, it really confuses me on how she always works her way back in when it comes to him. Like, it seems like most of the little tiny pieces we know comes from, from in-game wise anyways, comes from when it's tied into Benedictus or something got to do with destruction. When she's described to be such a beautiful, caring, peaceful person.
So are you trying to say that this game possibly had a chaste priest in a forbidden love with Tiffin? I'm not saying that they did anything, but he longed for her and couldn't have her because he was chaste.
That's what I was thinking too. Oh my god.
Okay, really? Okay, thank you. Oh!
Oh, 10 enemy betrayal.
It's happening, guys.
It's actually Benedictus. It's not Arthas. It's not Varian. It's not
It's
Deathwing.
Benedictus. It's Anduin's boy. It's his dad. He's going down the same road as his dad. He's gonna become a Twilight cultist. We figured it out, guys. We figured it out.
That's actually what Shadow Reaper Anduin is. He is the Hour of Twilight. Dun dun dun.
Oh my god.
No one believe me. Please don't believe me.
I mean, if you really think about it, though, if we're going to be talking about lockets and such, too, and the cinematic with Anduin, rezzing all of those people is unheard of. So let's talk about it. Yes, it's been 2 times. Isn't it technically 3 now?
Are we talking about the BFA?
Yeah.
Trailer. He did not resurrect them. He mass healed.
But okay, thank you. That I mean, I kind of
it takes a lot of power.
I kind of put those 2 together.
Yeah.
But
he mass healed from near death, which I would think, like, doing that fast of a heal on one person from near death would be a near equivalent to resurrection. So what he did was on a basis of about 50, 60 soldiers, I suppose, because like there was a ton of them and I didn't count each one of them. And Gangrene in Wolfie form, which would probably take a little more effort because he's big, tall, and fluffy. But doing that much is definitely equivalent to 1 or more resurrections, in my opinion. So, like, he was at the age of 14, 15, 16. I can't really tell you right now. Canonically, right now, he will be 18. So, right now, he's doing this whole resurrection thing at the age of 18.
Right. Mr. Drake, did you play beta? Because it would possibly, yeah, technically, yeah, it would be 3.
So yeah, he's really strong.
He is. But would you say that that's with training with Velen, or do you think those trinkets have a higher purpose in guiding him?
I think maybe he gets it's definitely from training with Velen. There's no doubt about it, because Velen only took him in because he knew he was exceptional. I know for a fact that those gifts definitely probably give him faith. They are kind of the crux of what's keeping him together right now, is knowing like he has these pieces of his family and he knows where he comes from, and he made up with Varian, even though it was so close to the end. He did eventually like see his father, not just Logosh the warrior side of Varian. He actually saw the soft, loving side of Varian that actually used to exist. So I think these trinkets, they are helping him, but we, like us saying, you know, they could be cursed, they could be leading him down a Twilight Zone. There could also be a good side to them of they were actually blessed. Maybe Tiffin asked for them to be blessed, and then maybe she had like this whole deal, like, when Anduin gets to this and this age, give it to him because I know he's going to train in the light or something. But I never know. Also, if she did say that, that's a little bit shady, because Varian never had that much of an interest in the light, and Arthas did. Cough, cough.
Yeah, right. Still on the topic with Benedictus, though, and going back to the possible like love interest, Lhok, how do you feel about that, by the way? Like, do you really think that that was a possibility with Benedictus?
Yeah, could have been a possibility. Could have been what sent him over the edge. I mean, top 10 anime betrayals, gets Varian killed. Yeah, I could see it. I'm just thinking, like, about like the whole like love like angle. I mean, this is going to sound strange, but like I'm looking at like his sort of like background, and yeah, so it's just about the dragons and what he did there.
Hmm. Yeah, Benedictus would have stayed in Northshire too, Shirviu. That
Yeah, he would have.
hmm.
He's always had that close connection. But to be honest, that's all we like when we're going on like basis stuff. That's all we really know about him.
Yeah, he's still an enigma, but I do feel like we're going to learn quite a bit about him. I think there's going to be more. I think he's this. There's a lot of characters that we like to say that are catalysts, that are in this giant weave of interlinking, which this game is. It's very in depth. It's very incredible. Like there's just a lot to love and really embrace in this. And it's gained down to the point of where it's mostly a lot of speculation about him. I honestly don't have much more to say about Benedictus. What about you guys?
No, that's really all I have.
I have to say this about him. There is no good, no evil, no light. There is only power.
Oh my god. Well, with that being said, and Lhok's amazing RPing abilities, we're gonna bid you guys adieu on this evening. We do run this podcast quite often. We're doing it every week now. June 17th should be our next one that's going to involve Marodon and the Elemental Lords, which is going to be really cool because we're going to cover old Elemental Lords and the new converted ones in Legion. So definitely show up for that. Once again, thank you for all of the new subs that have joined us. It is an absolute delight for you guys to join us in our journey, and you guys are all going to become little lore walkers with us. We do have descriptions in the link below for this video. You can come into our Discord and chat with us anytime. We're very active and we love talking to people about lore and all that good stuff. But yeah, we can continue the conversation on Discord for all kinds of things, or maybe something we missed that you think would be vital for possible speculation. But it is an absolute joy to have you guys along with, and we hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Bye.